We're sitting beside what is a Testarossa 3 manufactured $14.5 million work of art.
Yes.
And you actually used to own this car. You're Peter?
No, I didn't own it until after I got it in 1970. But we ran the car in 1960 because it was Jack Nethercutt was the one that owned it at that time. So, and then I couldn't afford it, so it went through a bunch of people and all that sort of stuff. And finally, it was in a derelict and in a dirt alley, and so somebody told me that this car was there, and so I went and looked at it and said, gee, this is pretty miserable. And so but we ended up buying the car then, and it was, I asked the guy that owned it, who was a college student, and he said, well, how much do you think I ought to ask about it? And I said, well, you tell me. And so he said, well, would $2,300 be enough? And I said, well, yeah, that'd probably work. And he says, well, there's a problem. The guy that he'd bought it from before lived up in Everett, which is north of Seattle, and he's got some of the parts that he didn't get when he bought this car. So we got in my little Volkswagen pickup truck, and we went up to Everett and found the guy's house, and he was happy that he was getting that stuff out of his garage. And I said, well, how much do I owe you? And I'd taken my checkbook with me, and so I said, well, how much do you want? And he said $300, and so I wrote out a check for $300, and then when I handed it to him, I said, now don't cash this for a while, because I don't have that much money in my account. And so anyway, he waited, and then the money got in the account, and so that's how we bought it.
Great story. And John Wright, you're basically a historian in Canadian racing. You saw this car, what, in 1961?
I've got a photograph. I just gave Pete a photograph of the car from Canada Track and Traffic magazine, where he won a race out in Westwood, I think it was. Wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Westwood 200 with Jack Nethercutt, though. He was in.
Yeah. Well, it was. I think it was a 2-hour or 3-hour race, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Jack Nethercutt. I think I drove first, and then he drove, and it was kind of a funny thing, but it was so easy because nobody else had cars that go this fast, so we just did that.
So, what is this? You don't got to ask the question. What was this car like to drive as a race vehicle?
Oh, yeah, it's fabulous.
Fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had it again. Had it back.
Well, you never can go back. That's one of the problems.
Yeah, well, see, Bruce is really, really careful. He's keeping all of his cars to his chest here, and so,
Now, tell me something. As a piece of machinery, this led to, what did this lead to in production with Ferrari? Ferrari was building what at that time in '61?
Oh, well, they were building road cars, but this was the main thing at that time.
Right, this is road racing. They were at the Grand Prix racing.
Yeah.
Phil Hill drove this car.
Yeah.
Right, and he did also what, the shark nose Formula One car was racing at those times.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, as a race car driver, what was it like making a living on the road? I mean, it wasn't like today, where you have all the endorsements and that kind of stuff. Some of it was pay as you play.
I didn't ever get paid for anything.
No, is that right?
No, I just...
It's just like the amateur racing today.
just having fun,
Interesting, right. So it wasn't as...
You couldn't accept money at that time, though, because of the SCCA, could you, Pete? You couldn't accept... The owner could win money, but the car driver couldn't. I think that was how it worked.
Yeah.
So
it really was a gentleman's sport.
Yeah.
Right? It's much attuned to what, I guess, amateur racing is today here in this part of the country, where getting sponsors is really the hardest portion, and right? Or like professional racing right now, the costs are so extreme that
yeah,
it's insane.
Right. Yeah.
So it's an era that's gone that will never ever.
Well, I've got a Lotus 11, and so I'm racing that, and that's a lot less expensive than one of these.
I can imagine, yeah. I was just telling you, I was storing one, and then I couldn't believe some of the prices that
Oh, yeah.
they're just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm just astounded by the beauty of this car.
Yeah.
It's-
It is gorgeous.
Now, did it look like this when it was in competition?
It was a little different because 1960 they changed the rules, and you couldn't have this low windshield, and it's a TR59.
Oh, yes, okay.
And so then you had to have a fuel tank that was less than what the original was, and the original was 38 gallons. And they've got 38-gallon tank in there now.
So
but,
it does have the original tank?
It
Now,
needs.
I'm sorry, Pete. Go ahead.
And so Jack Nethercutt went into a place that did aircraft
Oh, yeah.
stuff, and so they got a 30.5-gallon tank, and that was what led us to a 39-minute problem at Sebring. So we would have won the race. if we
Otherwise,
hadn't.
because you ran out of gas.
No, it didn't run out of gas. I stopped, and they filled the car up, and they have at that time they had one marshal for each two places, and you know when you come in.
2 pits.
Yeah, and the guy looked at it and he says, "We just put fuel in it," and then I was getting ready to go, and he says, "Wait, stop! You can't go. You're leaking fuel."
Oh.
And so there was this crack about 18 inches long down the side of the tank. And so God, we had to pump all that stuff back out again because it was a one of those bag things that
Right.
was up on the top of the thing. And then what we did was we had 5-gallon cans, and we'd go up to where the truck was and come back and pour it into that. And so then we had to undo it all, and the guy that was the mechanic for Nethercutt's, why he got busy, and I didn't know what he was going to do, but Kimberly Clark paper napkins, those things, you've seen them, and he laid those couple, 3 layers of those on the pit counter, and he started mixing up some sticky looking stuff, and I didn't know anything about, that kind of stuff that you would make it work. And so anyway, he stirred all this stuff up, and I was busy doing something else. I think I was helping him get the fuel back into the bag thing. And so he just took it in, and he laid it on his arm and slapped it onto the thing and held it until it stuck.
So you fiberglass thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so this marshal, he's looking at all this, and he says, "That won't work." And I said, "No, just wait a minute here. I'll take the car around 1 lap, 5 miles around,
Right.
and I'll stop, and you can see whether it's leaking or not." And boy, I had my fingers crossed. And so I went around, and I came back in. We looked at it. And he says, "Oh my God, it's holding it. It's that patch you put on there is holding it." So boy, we put fuel back in it, and away we went.
That's it. How'd you
Yeah.
end up?
It was it was 39 minutes. We stopped, including the one around and refilling, and we were in 16th place by the time we went back out. And so suddenly all of the Maseratis started to fall out, and somebody recruited Sterling Moss to come up into the announce booth, and the cars that were probably going to be winners, which they ended up being, were Porsches. And so I'm out there driving around, and it was getting close to dark, and Jack was his turn, and his dad called him in and said, and told me, he says, "Jack's these 3 horses slowly moving. So I'd like you to get back in the car. So I had about a 20-minute rest, and then I got back in the car and thought I was going to be able to go all the way, but then they gave me another me pull in and for Jack to get back in the car, and that was 15 minutes before 10. And so Jack got in and we pussyfooted around, and in the meantime, one of the Porsches broke a finger on the exhaust valve, and it broke the cover. So it was just streaming oil out of it. And so while we were doing all of this, getting Jack in there, well, the car just cruised up the pit lane and got clear up to the end, and those guys were stuffing rags into the holes. And so Jack went out and he cruised around, and so that the guy that got he was running on 3 cylinders by that time, and he still made it in front of us.
So you got second place again?
No, third.
Third?
Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
Now, if you only had that gas tank.
Yeah. We should have had get an expando tank.
That's fascinating. So, one more question I had. When you purchased the car, okay, so now you've got this motion. What do you do? Start to reassemble it? Or what happened?
Oh, it sat around for...
You were running a Volkswagen dealership.
And Ferrari.
Oh, you had Volkswagen Ferrari? What a mix.
No, it was in the Ferrari was in Seattle, and
yes.
The Volkswagen ended up in
So you started to set her up for how many years?
Probably. Well, I bought it in 1970, and we just put it away because I didn't have the money.
Put it store it.
Yeah. So finally, in 1989.
Oh, so 19 years later.
Yeah, I was Butch Dennison and his wife said that they would restore the car because he wanted to do that.
Right.
He was 15 years old when he went with his dad, and they put a midget on a trailer and went to all the dirt races in the middle of during between him being in school, and then that was what he did in the summertime.
Summer, sure.
3 months. And so he learned a lot of things just from doing that with his
So he had
dad.
a passion to redo the vehicle.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So we'd sent some other people to do it, and they did a botch job and all that sort of stuff. So we just let it sit for a while, and finally, Butch said, well, why don't I get my wife and myself to restore this car? And because he'd been to Laguna Seca and had seen a lot of
Saw it
cars.
running, and he saw these.
Well, he saw the other cars that were there that were just beautiful like this, and so he said that he'd like to do that, and so he did. And it took him 21 months, and in 1991, well then
And that's this restoration.
Mhm.
It hasn't been touched since.
Well, it didn't have the numbers and the Scudery Ferrari thing on it, but it went into that was what he wanted, to have it go into the Pebble Beach Concourse, and because that was one of the big
Prestige event.
best places. So we bought a trailer, just a single car trailer, and took it down to Monterey. And actually, what we did is parked it in front of a house that there was a driveway, and then they were friends of ours, and we parked it down there until and left it there until then on Sunday, then it came out and went up to get into the
Got to beg the question, how did it do?
well, it was first in its class, and
Wow.
and then the Hans Tanner Award was given to us also.
Very nice.
So
Yeah, you can see the badging on the side of the vehicle.
yeah,
Historic minor rate, 1997.
yeah. Well, that's
99.
well.
Fascinating story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I leave the mic back, so I want to shake your hands.
Okay.
John Wright,
Dave,
thank you.
let
Now
me
you're
too.
part of the, you're
Canadian
actually,
Motorsport Museum.
right, so where's that now? That's up at,
It's located in Peter Klut's Legendary Motor Cars on the
That's right.
second floor.
now you were trying to find a home for it, don't you?
We are. We're working on that right now. We have a foundation in place to raise money for a new museum.
Yeah.
That's in the future, but right now we have 3 Formula One cars. We have 3, 4, 5 Indy cars on display. We have various other cars and memorabilia on display, and we're open about 4 or 5 days a week and on
Yeah,
Saturday
you were in
too.
the Hamilton Air Museum for a while.
We were.
And then you were at College Street for a while.
We were.
Right.
We were orphans from the storm, as it
And
were.
I failed to understand why we can't find a home for this thing.
It's a case of show me the money.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you
Great.
too.
And it's the first time in 10 years that they're up here at Vaughan, Ontario, and what they bring is stuff like this. It's phenomenal.